Good morning! How is everybody doing? Sorry for my absence last week. I had a little car accident Saturday night. It wasn't my fault, but that kind of put a damper on me doing one of these videos or doing anything last weekend. So, I'm here this week. I hope everybody had a good holiday, whatever holiday you celebrate. What I read since the last time we talked, I read a lot for, knowing me, because I've had times where I haven't really read much at all. But I read Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It was fantastic. More on that later. I read Natural Love. My review for that should come up in the next week or two. But that was by Sarah Selly. I read When Joss Met Matt by Ellie Cahill, and that was just a really cute new adult. Like, it's just really fun. And then I finally read Five Ways to Fall, and I thought that was great too. I love Ben and Reese. They were great. I still love Ashton and Livy from One Tiny Lie the best, but they were really good. Right now, I'm not really reading anything. I think I'm going to read Bad Romeo next. I've had friends that have really loved it and friends that really didn't love it, so it will be interesting to see what I think. But I wanted to talk about, I guess, the best books I read this year. And some of these books, I think all but one actually were released this year, but there was a certain series that I read that I felt needed to be on this list, and it wasn't released in 2014, so I kind of made up my own little list and favorite books read in 2014. And they are in no particular order. But first, I love Priscilla Glenn. I've really enjoyed all of her books, and her third book came out, I think, in January of this year, and I thought it was great. She writes just these really quiet love stories. Back to You was like a second chance romance. Emancipating Andy was kind of this forbidden type of romance, and Coming Home was just this romance that happened, kind of at the wrong time, and how they make that work or how they don't make that work. So it's called Coming Home by Priscilla Glenn. Loved it. I thought it was really, really good. And I can't wait for her next book. So that's book number one. But these are in no particular order. The next book I loved and was a favorite this year was Unravel by Calla Reed. That book I was waiting for. It was one of my most anticipated, I think, of this year. But the blurb was really unique and really mysterious. And I think after reading the book now, it captured what the book was about, and just in a really great way. 6 months ago, I was happy. I was simply Naomi Carradine. 1 month ago, I was admitted into a psych ward. Yesterday, Lachlan visited me, kissed me, and told me that I'm starting to lose my mind. Hours later, Max haunted my thoughts, reminding me that I'm not crazy and that he needs my help. A few minutes ago, I drifted further from reality, trying to unravel the past, and now everyone thinks I'm insane. But I know he's real, and I know he needs me. Do you believe me? So, anyway, I don't really want to reveal what that book is about, but you should read it. It was really good, and you can find it at Barnes & Noble. So, Tarryn Fisher. The next book should come as no surprise, and that book is Mudvayne by Tarryn Fisher. I talk about this book all the time. And it's not only one of my favorite books this year, but it's also one of my favorite all-time books. I've reread it multiple times, and it's just one of those books that stayed with me. And I think if you haven't read it, it's one of those books you have to read when you're in the right mind. It's very much a message book. It will leave you thinking about, at least it left me thinking about my life. The book itself is more than the plot points and what happens. There's a lot going on underneath the surface, there's a lot of symbolism. There's just a lot going on. And I thought it was such a great story. I loved Senna, even though she was not a very likable character. I could understand her, and Isaac. But it's one of those books I think about and my heart just kind of breaks a little bit. So very, very, very good. The next book, and I'm kind of cheating because these are multiple books, is Fever, the Fever series by Karen Marie Moning. I was super late on the Fever train, and thank you to one of my friends who recommended this series to me, but I loved it, and I can't wait for Burned. So good. Ever be in my head. Like, I loved it. Mac travels to Ireland because her sister is brutally murdered, and she walks right into the arms of a very mysterious person named Jericho Barons, and they kind of team up and try to find this mysterious dark book, and while Mac, I guess, is trying to hunt for her sister's killer, but Mac really doesn't know what she's getting into in terms of going to Dublin, and she kind of opens up this whole can of worms with the fairy world. And anyway, it's fantastic, and the sexual tension and the just general heaviness that is Jericho Barons is fantastic. Yes. The next two books The next two books is by a new favorite author of mine. I've talked about her books incessantly, and it's After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid and Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. What I love about her books is the fact that she takes everyday people in kind of everyday situations and very simple situations and gives the reader a glimpse into their lives. With After I Do, it was a married couple who, after I think it was 10 years, after a long time, after they'd been married, they both kind of realized that they can't stand one another, and you kind of see the progression of, or maybe I should say the regression of their love story. I mean, from the beginning, you kind of see them fall in love, and then as the years go by, the animosity builds and the resentment builds, and they both kind of come to the conclusion, they're like, I'm not in love with you anymore. And they come up with an idea that they will take a year off their marriage and they can do whatever they want. And it's one of those books that you have kind of panic attacks, and nothing really crazy dramatic happens in either book, After I Do or Forever Interrupted. Nothing crazy really happens. Like, if you're looking for these big dramatic like plot twists and like lots of drama, then these books are not going to be for you. But she creates these emotions in these really simple moments, and I just found that fascinating. With After I Do, I thought my heart was going to be out of my chest. I was kind of on the verge of a little panic attack, and it was painful, and it was great. I loved it. Forever Interrupted, which is going to be a movie, and I'm very excited because I hope this movie brings lots of attention to her books because she's great. But Forever Interrupted, it's about another married couple who have this kind of whirlwind romance, and the husband dies, and this is in the blurb, so it's not a spoiler, but the husband dies very, very, very early on in their marriage. And so the book is about a woman kind of coming to terms with that, grieving over him, and moving on. And of course, interwoven in with the story of grief and moving on is their love story and how they met and how they got married, like how they reached the point to where they decided to get married. And I can say that Ben is one of my favorite book boyfriends ever. I thought he was just so sweet, and it made his death that much more painful. So, highly, highly recommend her books. The writing is fantastic. The character development is fantastic. I loved both books. And her next book is one of my most anticipated of 2015. So, yes. The next book is called 53 Letters from My Lover, and it's about a woman, Iranian woman, who has an arranged marriage, and she at first wasn't in love with her husband, but of course over the years she learned to kind of love him in the way that she was able to. Um, but she never really got that awe-consuming type of love that she's always wanted until she met this other guy. And she actually met him, I believe it was either early on in her marriage or right before she was set to get married. And when they met, she felt something there, but there was never really anything acted upon. And then they're separated for several years, and many years into her marriage, she sees him again, and of course they started this affair. But it's very much a kind of second chance romance, forbidden romance. Interwoven with this idea of culture, this woman's culture and her life and what's expected of her, and how her culture has kind of affected her choices. And so it's part women's fiction, part romance. I really thought the culture aspect added a lot to the novel. I thought it was really great. But what I loved about this book was that the writing was really good, first of all. But second of all, there were just these moments that it was pulling at my heart. It reminded me a lot of The Opportunist by Tarryn Fisher in a lot of ways, because you were left thinking, oh my gosh, are these people going to end up together? How in the world are they going to end up together? How is everyone in the story going to be happy? I highly recommend that book to those who are like forbidden romance junkies. If cheating is something that you are like opposed to, then this book won't be for you. But I loved this book. The next book is The Hookup by Kristen Callahan. This book was such a pleasant surprise. I didn't really have any expectations going into it. I hadn't read anything by Kristen Callahan, but I finished it and I immediately wanted to reread it because it was so fun. But it is the classic kind of no strings attached, friends with benefits, or not even friends, but just benefits relationship between this college football star and just this ordinary college girl. Anna is a very independent girl. She's very strong. She's not afraid to put Drew in his place. And Drew is just kind of the typical college quarterback, but he's super intelligent and kind of doesn't like to have the label of jock. And the two of them just kind of start sleeping together, and of course feelings develop, and I just thought it was so good. And I've talked about this before too, but the first kiss in that book is probably one of my favorite. It is one of my favorite first kisses ever. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. I've read that scene so many times. It's so good. You should read it. Cezanne, I'm looking at you. Cezanne, you need to read it. We just talked about this last night. The next book is What I Thought Was True by Huntley Fitzpatrick. This is a YA, contemporary YA. And again, it's a very quiet love story about first loves and kind of, where to go after high school, like what's going to happen. And it takes place on this charming little island. This girl who's kind of the working class of the island. The island is a tourist / vacation home getaway type of thing, and her family is one of the working families that keeps the island going. And the love story that happens between her and this very wealthy guy that doesn't live on the island but is working there for the summer. And it's really cute and really, really good, and it kind of tugs at your heartstrings, but it's a very quiet story. Again, it's not full of drama, but it just really makes me happy. It's just one of those stories that just made me happy, and it was just very charming. So I highly recommend that. I still need to read My Life Next Door by her. That's a goal of 2015. I need to read that because the sequel to My Life Next Door comes out, I think, in 2015. So need to get on it. And the last book, number 10, is Killer Queen by L.H. Cosway. You know how much I loved Painted Faces, and Killer Queen is kind of the companion / continuation, but it can totally be read as a standalone story of Frida and Nicholas, about a drag queen who falls in love with. I love Nicholas. I love Frida. Frida is kind of just the girl that you just can relate to. Nicholas is just this sweet guy, and I just love him so much. And it was just so much fun to read. So those are my 10 books. I think I'm also going to do like a most anticipated of 2015 as well. Because I got a lot. I feel like I have a lot in 2015 that I'm looking forward to. So maybe I'll do that next week. Maybe. Did you guys get any good books for Christmas? I didn't get any books for Christmas, but actually that's a lie. I ordered a whole bunch of books off of Book Outlet and for like 20 bucks. So bonus. And now for the portion of the segment called What I Added on Goodreads This Week. Alright, first book I recently added was My Dear, I Wanted to Tell You by Louisa Young. I saw this book on Book Outlet several months ago, and it just looked like a really good historical romance. It's set during World War I, so, and a lot of my Goodreads friends have rated it really highly, so I thought it looked really good. The second book I added was the sequel to Unravel, which is Unrest by Calla Reid, and it comes out on August 11th of next year, so there's quite a bit of wait for it. But the next two books were a little announcement by K.A. Lind, which I was super excited about, and that is the fourth and fifth books of the Record series, Struck from the Record and Broken Record. And I believe the fourth book is Clay's book, and the fifth book is Savannah's book. So I'm kind of excited to read those. I still need to read For the Record, the last book in that series. They're just really fun books. I enjoy them. The last book is a YA novel that comes out in February, and it looks really cute, it's called One of the Guys by Lisa Alden, and it's about a girl who's very much a tomboy, and she kind of falls in love with one of the guys that she's BFFs with. So I love friends to lovers storylines, so I think I'll really enjoy that one. Anyway, what books have you guys added this week? What books are you reading? What have you finished? Let me know. And I hope that you guys enjoyed my best reads of 2014 and that you have a great week. Bye.